Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee. We are not expecting a fire drill this evening, so if the alarm does go off during the meeting, please leave by the nearest emergency exit and make your way to gather outside Runnymede Hall. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Members, we've received apologies from Councillor Huntsman. Are there any other apologies?
Lorraine Larman said she was already at a meeting and wouldn't be able to attend.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members, do you have any declarations of interest to declare? Nobody, thank you. Agenda item 3, are the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of February 25 agreed? The date today? 18th. Thank you. Agenda item 4, Treasury Management Update, third quarter stage. Ms. Carrero, would you kindly introduce your report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee. So this is the standard quarterly Treasury Management update report for quarter 3, covering October, November, December of 2024. So firstly, I'll highlight some points on the Council's borrowing position at the end of the quarter. As shown in Appendix 1 of the report, the Council had a total of 25.5 million of borrowing at the end of the quarter, which is a split of 4.5 million on the General Fund and 21 million on the HRA. Can I just highlight that there is a slight discrepancy on the General Fund outstanding balance, which should read 4.5 million instead of 4.4. Apologies for that typo. No new borrowing was undertaken during the quarter, but I can let the committee know that earlier this month, we managed to borrow 4.5 million on the HRA from PWLB. This is refinancing a portion of the 6 million, which was repaid the 1st of June 2024. And this is in line with budget expectations. By delaying our borrowing, we managed to secure our loan at a much lower rate of 4.42%, with the expectation of refinancing it year on year in line with budget at much reduced rates if what the markets are predicting continue to hold true. Our external interest payable year to date is in line with budget, which is what we would expect given that all our external borrowing are on fixed interest rate. Next, I will highlight some points on investments. Appendix 2 of the report is summarizing the Council's investment activities in the quarter. At the end of the period, the Council had 27.7 million invested, while the average for the year to date has been 30.4 million. The interest rate achieved on the Council's investment during the quarter has averaged 5.17%. This remains above the benchmark that we use, the SONIA rate, which was 5.01%. And as Lance has highlighted previously, now that the Bank of England's base rate is coming down, we can reasonably expect to be ahead of the benchmark rate as the rate reacts quickly to any market movements, while most of our investments remain fixed for a period of time. The actual interest receivable for the year has been 1.185 million, which is 212,000 lower than forecasted. This is due to a lower than projected average balance, offset slightly by a better rate of return than expected. looking at the other benchmarking figures, as in paragraph 7 of the report, for security of investments, we have achieved a weighted credit rating of 4.32, which exceeds our target of 4, while its liquidity is reasonably liquid at 119 days. During the quarter, the Bank of England reduced the base rate by 0.25% down to 4.75. Since then, the bank has made further reductions to interest rate, which now stands at 4.5%. As always, investments will be monitored to ensure we are getting the best possible return. This is done after consideration of security and liquidity, making longer-term investments where appropriate and to lock in higher rates for as long as possible. This is all I wish to cover, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Dearson.
Two. The first one, the first one is on the investments. In April, we were at 32.4, now we're at 27.7. Can you just give us an update on where the rest of that investment went, where it was utilised, if it wasn't put in the, if it wasn't invested anywhere?
So with our as investments are staggered, we can invest up to a year. So some of the investments will be 6 months, some 3 months, some money market funds which are highly liquid. We can invest and withdraw anytime. So depending on when we capture the amount,
right,
it varies, it changes every time.
Right,
And
okay.
is that enough?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
And I think the only other question I had was was on the ratings. I know we are at 4. I think it was at 4.32.
4.32, yeah.
Which was above the rating of 4, but I'm assuming most of our investments are AA minus. Would that be right if we're at 4? Is that because
It's because
we're a council, we can't get anywhere that wants to give us AA or AA plus, or?
No, most of our, like again, we've got different investments. We've got money market funds, which are AAA. We've got banks, which are AA plus. Again, they are spread all over. We like banks, building societies, and local authorities. Again, they all have different ratings. So it's the average, which is across the board.
That's perfect, because I would have thought the money market would have been AAA, so that answers the question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. It looks like we've got a strong performance again on the Treasury, which is impressive. So thank you for that. I recognise what you say about we're likely to lag the markets and therefore maintain a higher rate for a longer period than the sort of instantaneous overnight rates in the market. But has the sort of eventual fall of rates been factored into the 3-year balanced budget that we adopted at the last full council meeting?
Yes, we have captured all that forecast into our 3-year budget.
Excellent. Thank you. It's reassuring.
Yeah.
Any further questions, anyone? Okay, thank you. Members, is that noted? Agenda item 5, internal audit mandate and charter strategy and audit plan for 2025-26. Mr. Barnes, will you introduce your report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is our annual report to the committee on the approach to delivering the internal audit service for the council, and in so doing documenting how we're going to comply with the new global internal audit standards that apply from the 1st of April, and to explain to you the specific internal audit work that's proposed to be delivered during 25-26, and to explain how this will provide assurance to the committee in respect of the council's corporate risks. I'm afraid there is quite a lot of material required by the standards. So as a result, you have in your pack a mandate and a charter which explains what internal audit is and what it is for, which is Appendix 1. A strategy that explains how we will go about delivering that, which is Appendix 2. A plan that captures the specific audit work we propose to undertake during the year, which is Appendix 2A. And a table showing how the planned work contributes to providing assurance over the way the council is managing its corporate risks, which is Appendix 2B. Everything's been updated as necessary as a result of the changes brought about by the introduction of the new global internal audit standards. I suppose the key document for the committee to consider really is the plan at Appendix 2A, and this shows the audits that we consider will provide assurance in the most useful areas for the council. We've shared the proposed work with senior management and mapped this to the risks as shown at Appendix 2B. There's obviously much going on at the council, not least of which is the move towards local government reorganisation, and that will be a constant thought at the back of our minds when delivering this work to try to help the council to make the right decisions on actions to take and what maybe might need more consideration in the context of the future changes that are coming. Hopefully the committee agrees that our proposed work is targeting the right risks and issues, but I'm happy to receive any feedback or comments the committee have. That's my introduction for the item, Chair, so I'm happy to try to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Andrew. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Brenning.
Thank you, and thank you for a very concise report. I do have a couple of questions on Appendix 2B on the internal audit strategy. On page 33, economy and growth, you did an audit work in 24-25 about the Castle Point Place partnership. I don't seem to have any follow-up on what's happening with that audit.
So that audit is, as is shown in one of the later items, I think the status of that when we produced the papers was that report was sitting with me, but since we provided the papers, that's now been shared with the business. So that report is going through the discussion phase, and then the summary of that will be brought to the next audit committee meeting once that report's finalised.
Okay, thank you. And on page 10 of your mandate and charter, your paperwork, you actually make a statement there, which I do have slight concerns about, and that is on page 10 towards the bottom, before you get to statutory role, paragraph just above that, you've put the head of internal affairs will report on the the internal audit will be appropriately staffed in terms of numbers, qualification levels and experience. How would you guarantee that? Because that is a statement.
I can't guarantee that. That's our strategy, so that's our plan. We want to, that's the situation we're striving for, and as you probably realise from previous meetings, that's something we do struggle with. Yes. But this is setting out kind of my panacea, so to speak. So this is what I want to achieve, and obviously there's lots of work to be done to actually get there.
In that case, sorry, further question. What steps are being taken to try and get there? Because we are all aware, I think, on this committee that staffing has been an issue for quite some time.
So we've, in a later item I'll explain that we've just recently appointed a new internal audit manager who's going to join the team later in the year. We regularly do recruitment exercises, and that brings people in, but people leave as well. So there's just this fairly regular churn in the team, I'm afraid. So it's once people get knowledge and understanding of audit, then they become quite attractive commodities to either other local authorities or other, and also our proximity to London doesn't help with all the business work and world that there is up there. So over my time, we've certainly lost a number of people to the city effectively once they can get a good base of knowledge and understanding of audit and then take that forward into different avenues. So we've currently got an apprentice who joined us in September. So we're seeking to grow our own, and I'd look to recycle that once she's completed her qualification. Hopefully, if we've still got vacancies, then she'll choose to stay with the team, and then we'll feed another apprentice into the bottom, and hopefully just try to build up from the bottom. Yeah.
Are there any further questions, members? In that case, members, I will move that the recommendation set out at paragraph 3.1 of the report to approve the mandate, charter strategy and audit plan for 2025-26. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you, members. Agenda item number 6, internal audit recommendations and agreed management action implementation update. Mr. Barnes, would you introduce your report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the first time we've brought this report to the committee, and the Council is now capturing the internal audit recommendations and the agreed management actions as a result on what is known as the IdeaGen IT system, and use of this system will improve the tracking of progress moving forwards. It has the functionality to provide reminders and updates to people as milestones approach, which will help to keep the recommendations on people's radars and make sure that they're delivering what they need to deliver. Management have been asked to and have updated the current position on the recommendations on that system to facilitate this report. And from the information that's on the system, we've been able to distill that into the status update captured at Appendix 1 of the report. This shows that some progress has been made on the majority of recommendations, although obviously we prefer if there were more that have been fully implemented. But we will then bring this report back to the committee periodically, so over time the committee can track delivery and be assured the council is delivering the actions in response to the recommendations that have been agreed. That's it for now, Chair. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andrew.
I must say, Andrew, you've been fantastic in your inclusiveness with us and trying to help us understand the documentation. I appreciate that IdeaGen is a brand new piece of software in effect and its early stages. But I think that both Lorraine and myself and probably other members of the committee, I think my only comment would be as we move forward with this, I get that we've got items fully implemented, but what we wanted to achieve as a committee was some insight into, for example, 4 items not yet started. If there's 4 items not yet started, why haven't they been started? If they haven't been started because the deadline for completion is December 26th, for example, then I'm not concerned. But if the 4 yet to be started haven't been started and the completion date was July 24, then I have a serious concern. So I think whilst this is a very good starting point, I think it would be good to get more detail around the partially implemented in terms of the dates and the time frames. So I think that was my first comment. If Andrew, this is a great start because it's given me some information about some concerns I have that I wouldn't have had without having this piece of detail in front of me. I think it's be good if we as a committee and with yourself can work in how we enhance this to give us the full picture. So it's not a complaint, it's just a comment of how we move forward. I think the second question was, because there are items yet to be started, and I'll come on to a couple of other items in a minute, are there any current items outstanding that have missed the deadline?
There are some that have missed the deadline. I've looked through the detailed report today, and it's probably about 50-50 in respect of things that are beyond deadline and things which are deadlines still in the future.
Okay. So I think from my perspective, that's a concern as under audit and governance, that we have items that have missed the deadline and this committee has no line of sight as to what those items are currently, what the risk rate in those are. I mean, all those items that are missed might be very minor, like has every member of staff got a pen or something, or they could be as high level as we haven't completed a reconciliation or something. I don't know. All I'm saying is I think that that's quite an urgent issue in the sense of all the items that have missed the deadline. Could we get some feedback on that maybe for the next meeting? Listen, the world's not perfect. We just have to move forward. And I think off the back of that, I think this report's good because it highlighted 2 things to me. This business continuity is in the system, but was in the 2024, is not in the 24-25 plan, but it was actually carried over from 23 24, and what's worrying me is there's 4 items on the business continuity that have still not started. So they're over a year old and they still haven't been started yet. And then if I look at the housing arrears, we have 6 items there, and none of those have been started yet. Obviously under partnerships, again, that was from the previous year, and we've got 8 items not yet started. So I do have a big concern that there are a lot of items here, some from the previous year, and they've not even been started. So again, I think that just comes back to my point of, is there any roadblocks? Is it staffing issues? What can we do as a committee to help? Do we need to go to the Cabinet and ask and discuss with Cabinet what they can do to help you guys? Because clearly, if we've got some from last year that haven't even been started yet, we need to address. That. That's my final comment on number 6. Sorry.
If Mr Barnes can come back.
Yeah, Mr. Barnes.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid comment. Thank you, Councillor Dearson. I think the implementation of this actual report and the fact that it's going to be highlighted is going to generate some additional actions from management. I think if we start asking those questions and you start asking those questions, I think we will see that things will migrate from the right-hand side of this report to the left-hand side of this report.
Yeah. Sorry, just to follow up on that, I think that's the important bit for me is that if management aren't, I have a roadblock somewhere that's not their fault, great, but if they're just not getting to what they should be getting to, this is fantastic because it will highlight areas where people are not meeting their targets in effect.
Angela, would you like to come in there as well, you say?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Dearson, just to provide additional assurance, you'll have noticed on the agenda this evening is the annual governance review update, and that provides a lot of background detail into the progress of some of those audits where partial assurance has been found. So that provides a bit more of that colour and context that you are specifically referencing, so it should give you additional levels of assurance. I think it's fair to say that some of these are quite old, as you've identified yourself, so they go back for quite some time. The sheer fact of putting them onto the IdeaGen system has surfaced to them, which is in itself a good thing, albeit recognising that clearly it was poor practice that they weren't being adopted in the first place. So I fully accept that criticism, and as Andrew says, it's very much a sort of a reset opportunity to enable management to now work its way through all of those recommendations. Some of them will have been overtaken by events, for example, the partnership side of things, I think, and indeed contract management also. Some of those things will have been overtaken by events, so some of those will then need to be revisited between internal audit and management to make sure that they still remain relevant. But for example, seeing as you lighted upon it, business continuity explanation is given in the annual governance statement update, which does explain where we are in relation to that. So there are other forms of assurance which hopefully will give you some comfort.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I'm not trying to be critical. I want to work with everybody, and I think we all do. I suppose, and Andrew and I spoke about this yesterday, is we currently have the housing stuff that we're going through. We're going to have devolution, which is going to create lots of work for everybody within the organisation. And I think both Ryan and I said to Andrew, when we put our plan together for 25, 26, and when the teams give out their dates of what they can, on the audit points that get raised, I think I would rather see that they're going to do it in 6 months' time if they know they can maybe get it done in 3 months' time, because we've got an awful lot going on. And I think it can sometimes be not helpful for the staff if they're missing their deadlines and they feel like they're not performing, and then that they get despondent when in fact, and I said this to Andrew, so I've seen it when I worked in the city, sometimes people want to please, so they'll say that they can get something done in 2 months when it's really 4 months, and then they don't deliver. and then we get stuff that's missed target. So I think that, especially with devolution and everything else, we ought to be careful over the next year of what we can achieve and within what time frames would be my.
Chair, through you, and thank you. Councillor Diss and I entirely agree with you, and it's and thank you for your comments, which are very gratefully received. It is, in fact, very true that we're doing lots of things simultaneously, and that is probably why some of these are quite old now. And when I say things are overtaken by events, genuinely I'm talking about the transformation programme that we've been on, has superseded a number of the earlier audits. But this is about regularising and fixing what's gone wrong in the past, and making sure that we restate and then re-baseline going forward. So absolutely, I would agree with you entirely. It's about making sure that officers who are busy delivering transformation and doing all the other things are able to respond to recommendations which are properly given by internal audit in a timescale which is proportionate to the risk, clearly, but also is ultimately deliverable. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Councillor Harbison, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So just relating to Appendix 1, we've got housing, fire safety audit and landlord health and safety audit, with the recommendations that were back in January. Have we got a time frame for when these are supposed to be completed? Because obviously they're quite important. It's just that we've got a timeline so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, there is deadlines for each of those internal audit recommendations within the system. I think they have, a bit like the Chief Executive just said, they've moved on because these are quite old pieces of work, but there's still work to be done to address those particular issues. So I think when I looked on the report this morning, I think they were all scheduled to be done by the end of this financial year. Whether that will be the case or not is we'll have to see when we come back to review later.
Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Councillor Harmison, if I can give you some additional assurance, all of the recommendations that were picked up in those two audits have a corresponding action in the Housing Improvement Programme, and so the performance of those actions is being monitored through the Housing Improvement Programme Board, and therefore will be scheduled to be completed alongside all of the other improvements. So there are 2 points of contact into the recommendations falling out of those particular audits.
Councillor Briding.
Thank you, Chair. I looked at this report and there are 2 items that I would really love to have seen on them. One would be the date when the audit was took place, and then the other would be a date when you hope to have all the actions completed. And I think that would save us a lot of concerns, because I think it would then allow us to look at specifically when they should be coming up on any reports. If we could have that put on this paperwork, I think it would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a fairly mechanical question, this, but I'm not familiar with the IDGen system, so excuse me if this is obvious to people who are using it. But this report's great to have because it gives an overview, but does it let you literally drill down from this screen into the detail of what's outstanding and then the dates and the available reports in the way that Sims does?
I can't compare it to that particular system. I don't know if you can.
No, I can, yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, so the report that Andrew's got here is a summary which he's pulled together from the system, but the system itself allows you to drill down, basically starting on the audit, looking what the audit is, looking at each action, looking at the milestones that sit underneath each of those recommendations as well, looking at the notes when they've been last updated and all those sorts of things. So yeah, it holds it all in really quite a high level of detail.
So a supplementary to address my colleague's points there. Sorry, I was losing my thread. Is that something that it would be possible or appropriate for councillors to have access to from this committee?
Yeah, I would suggest that's a management tool, and you should be getting summarised information from that particular system. It's very detailed, as Ben said, it's very detailed in respect of each individual recommendation, all the actions that have been taken to address that as things progress along to the final deadline. And as we said, that it provides prompts and reminders, so but it's a management tool rather than a members tool, I would argue.
Thank you.
Councillor Benson, please.
Thank you, Chair. This Appendix 1 internal audit plan, have we seen this before? Was this presented to us at the last meeting? It's just that the maths are off again slightly, and I wondered whether the 100%, it totals to 99%, so would a decimal point there make rounding a little bit better so it totals up to 100%? And also, again, on the analysis over departments, the total is 276. Should that be 267?
I think you might have skipped to the next item, Councillor.
Oh, have I?
Yeah.
Where am I?
You're on 7, I think.
Oh, sorry. My mistake. But yeah, carry that over. Thanks.
Don't feel that you need to ask the question again.
Thank you. Councillor Dearson.
No, I have the same question.
Members, are there any further questions? Thank you. Members, is that noted? Noted. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, internal audit, quarterly performance report. Mr. Barnes, will you carry on, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your indulgence, Committee. So this item is our regular report to the Committee outlining the progress we've made in delivering the plan. And for this one, it's for 24-25. The Committee approved this plan this time last year. And this work will help to provide assurances to the Committee about the annual governance statement that you'll receive after the year end. So, as noted by the member, Appendix 1 provides a status update on each of the pieces of work in the plan, and we do keep the plan under review in accordance with any demands, resource demands the Council makes of the team to address challenges and issues arising as they occur, but as reported at paragraph 4.2, there have been no changes to the plan since the last report to the Committee in January. As I've set out at section 5, our level of sickness is disappointing, but this is solely as a result of the circumstances of one member of the team. The rest of the team have avoided any sickness absence in this period, and as I noted earlier, this auditor is the person that's left the team since we last met. Work is progressing, I'm glad to say, and being completed, and at the moment we're with 2/3 of the planned audits are done, although there are reports to be agreed in some instances, but these are moving forward. For example, the 2 that are shown as being reviewed by me have now progressed to being issued to management. The other 1/3 of the work is in progress except for the one audit that is yet to start. So overall, we're slightly behind where we'd like to be at this point in the year, but we're making arrangements to keep the work moving and being completed, and I'm confident we'll be in a good position when we come to present our annual report on the year to the Committee in July. As we discussed earlier, I reported to the last meeting that I was working to fill our audit manager vacancy, and I'm pleased to be able to report that the candidate I was in discussions with has accepted the role and will be joining the team, and also that one of our auditors has resigned, as I just mentioned. So appendices 2 to 4 provide an update on the results of the work completed since we last met, and this includes providing feedback on the development of the ICT strategy, and we're planning to undertake a second phase of that work early in the new municipal year. We're able to provide satisfactory assurance over the arrangements for the transformation programme and partial assurance over budget setting and the medium-term financial strategy and ICT utilisation and skills, and we've agreed actions in those areas with management to secure improvements moving forward. That's all I really wanted to say to introduce the item, Chair, but again, I'll try to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Edwards?
I apologise in advance if this has already been answered, because I know I did ask this question in the past and had an undertaking to come back to us, but I can't recall a response. We've got several mentions in here of business continuity in the ICT strategy, but I previously have asked, I know we've had practice call-outs and stuff, but have we had practice restores from our ICT backups for all of the critical systems in the business?
Thank you. Apologies if you didn't get a response to this. So I spoke with the IT manager and he explained the system that we use, where we're kind of dual running systems. So what we're doing is we're effectively running off sort of two pipes, I think, in between ourselves and our servers where they're stored. And therefore the kind of the restores themselves. So we're not doing full restores, but what we're doing is we're basically running, we're backing up from one particular one of these pipes, if you want to put it in that sense. And then effectively we will then switch over and then start running from the other, so we're sure that there is basically the information that's being backed up is being backed up correctly. I can dig out the response and give you the more technical and point to the actual system itself.
Didn't remember a detailed response on it.
Right.
But it, that kind of raises. I'd be interested in the response.
Okay. Let me resend that email.
The servers aren't the only sort of critical system, right down to individual desktops.
Yeah.
Are they imaged and etc.?
Let me dig the response out. I'll send that through to you, and if we need more information, I'll get that
Thanks.
for you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Benson.
Hello, thank you. I'm on the right report now. My question was actually just curiosity on the sickness absent management. Obviously, you've put there that you've assessed the robustness of management. I just wondered what sort of support has changed now that assessment has been completed to support individuals within the organisation.
So we did this piece of work obviously back in sort of last summertime. So we made a number of recommendations that management have been working on, and there's been a suite of policy changes being updated. The new system's been introduced as well, so the sickness recording is now on a different system, so there's a lot going on in that space, or has gone on in that space and continues as well.
Councillor Dearson.
What Councillor Edwards was saying, the restore process, is that daily, hourly, or?
We do. I think we back up on an hourly basis.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So if anything went down, we wouldn't have to go back 5 days or anything like that. Okay. There was a couple of questions for Andrew. First one was on. I know that you've done the Treasury management report. I know we're now getting to the stage where we're getting to year end in effect, and it's at the completion stage. But obviously it's very critical because it impacts the financial statement. Are you able to give us any assurance that you, having done that audit, that you didn't find any significant issues identified that we should be worried about? I get there will be some items, there always is, but from the reports I get from Treasury Management, they seem to be doing a fantastic job. So I just wanted to get that assurance that there's no significant issues.
Yeah, the work's been done, but we haven't finished writing the report yet. But the conclusions from that will be there's some scope for improvement in kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's on various things, but there isn't any like major concerns over money going missing
or anything that would impact the year-end financial statement.
No.
Okay.
The report you received earlier, that is all in line with what we'd expect.
What you'd expect it to be,
and it's all backed up with evidence and information that the external auditors are all looking for, but they'll get the assurance they need.
Thank you.
To those numbers.
And I just had a question on waste, on the waste disposal, because it says, on the other report that under waste, the waste service, that it's work in progress. And I just wondered what you meant by work in progress, because it's on the Idiogen system as 11 items identified with 2 yet to start. So I wonder if you can explain, is the work in progress for you to go and review what they have done and what they're yet to start, or is just trying to understand what that means in comparison against this other report?
That's a good question, Councillor. So in the previous item, with the recommendations that are in place, that's from a previous piece of work that was done probably about 2 years ago now, I suspect. And now there's lots of activity going on in respect of updating the waste management service. So we're going to work with the project team to try to provide some check and challenge and some critical friend support on what they're doing in terms of moving that forward into the new waste world, whereas the recommendations are really on the old sort of waste world.
You know, you've worried me because you said from 2 years ago, yet we've got 2 not started.
I'd have to check the timeline on that. I might have misspoken then. That was off the top of my head.
Any further questions, members? Thank you, members. Is that noted? Thank you. Agenda item number 8, monitoring report of governance arrangements as presented in the annual governance statement. Mr. Brooke, would you please introduce your report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is a monitoring report of the governance arrangements as presented in the annual governance statement, which was brought before the committee in July 2024, and that was reporting on the position over the 23-24 financial year. This is the second of 2 progress reports. The first one of these came to committee in November 2024. Just to reiterate that the governance arrangements include individual officer leads who collectively form what we call the Good Governance Group, and that's people at assistant director level as well as the head of internal audit, and they have responsibility for the governance processes which are set out across the report. And just to say the report was developed with contributions from and in consultation with them. So in other words, we go to the group as experts and get updates from them. So the report provides a general update against all of the key business processes that we identify in the annual governance statement, plus a couple of action plans. So I'm going to move on to the main report then, and just a bit of a reminder, I suppose. I think the last time I presented this, I used the expression of sort of turning over stones and how we've been doing that as an organisation for a little while now, and unfortunately finding new issues which we obviously can't then just ignore and we need to address, which is why some of the levels of assurance that we presented in the 22-23 annual governance statement deteriorated when we reported those again in the 23-24, which was the one that came to this committee last year. I'm afraid to say that information governance is another one of those stones that we have unturned, but I'll cover that in a little bit more detail when I go into the report. But I did also want to flag that at the point of this second monitoring report, and obviously with us being almost very close to the end of the financial year, we are beginning to see improvements across most of our key business processes. So progress is being made, but I mean, obviously that will be more reflected fully in the annual governance statement when that comes to committee in July 2025. But I suppose I just want to sort of flag that you know, it feels like we have sort of turned a corner on a lot of this sort of stuff. So we are seeing some improvements, albeit, you know, still discovering issues that we need to address. So I won't go through each of the business processes. I'll pick out what I think are sort of the highlights, highlighting some good stuff, but also some issues that I'd like to raise to your attention. And then at the end of the presentation, obviously happy to take any questions. So the first one I'd just like to flag is around consultation and engagement. So that's paragraphs 5.2 to 5.8. This was given as a partial assurance in the 23-24 annual governance statement. It was just really to sort of draw out some positives on engagement that we've seen in sort of, you know, over the course of the last year, really. So we're getting some really good numbers now of people following us on Facebook. So we're up to 6,100 followers, just under 6,000 following us on X. And then LinkedIn, we've just got over 1,200. So again, I think that use of sort of social media is something which I think is really beginning to sort of be a key way that we can engage with residents across the borough. We've produced the biannual Castle Point Together magazine, and we also had a tenants magazine that was published in February 2025. So just a few sort of highlights really there, rather than just sort of flagging all of the issues, because the annual government statement did sort of point to inconsistencies that we probably weren't doing as much engagement as we should be doing. The next area is around business planning and strategy, including partnerships. So that's 5.9 to 5.16 in the report. We've got a key step towards adopting our new corporate plan, which is taking place tomorrow evening at Cabinet, where I hope that the recommendation that Cabinet approves the draft plan for referral to full council for adoption. And that particular plan sets out 5 new ambitions, with which other council plans will align. So that's a big sort of step in terms of setting that sort of high-level strategy for the council that service plans and other sort of strategies that we have across the council can align to. Also pleased to report that service plans are going to be in place for all of the assistant director areas by the end of this month as well. And again, if you were to go back to the annual government statement, that was an area where we had lots of inconsistency previously. Moving on to risk management, so that's 5.29 to 5.31. Good progress getting the risk register into the system IdeaGen again. Ease of producing reports, adding new risks, tracking mitigating actions. It's definitely sort of a step up from how we were doing it previously, using a bit of a mix of Excel and PowerPoint. This is much more interactive. It allows us to have a much stronger grip on progress against implementation of those mitigating actions. We've also got services identifying risks across their service areas as part of their service planning, and we'll be adding those risks to the same system over Q1 of the next financial year. Health and safety, so that's 5.29 to 5.36. This was flagged in November. We had an external review of health and safety arrangements. We had a health and safety board which was set up in October of last year. I think that was reported in the report that you received in November. We now have 4 working groups as well that have been established more recently to take forward some of these identified actions. Very much a focus at this stage on the compliance areas, so things around asbestos, health and safety of building users, systems and fire. And we're basically working to make sure that all of those things are where they should be. The next one is around emergency planning and business continuity. So this one was it was the only one that was flagged as minimal assurance in the annual governance statement for 23-24. And it's just to report that, that a lot of progress has been made, particularly with relation to emergency planning. We've had team exercises undertaken in February of this year, so very recently. We have a new SharePoint site which has been basically populated with a reviewed and refreshed suite of guidance documents for those involved in emergency planning. We have a gold and silver call-out rota which has been established, and a number of those gold and silver officers have been undertaking a lot of training recently up at the Essex Fire and Rescue headquarters in Kelvedon as part of the Essex Resilience Forum. So we're doing lots of work with other partners, basically putting us in a really good place should, and let's hope it doesn't, something happen and that we need to step up and help to support that. So just wanted to flag those in terms of the emergency planning progress. Performance management, 5.43 to 5.46. Same system again. We've been getting a lot of our organisational metrics into this one system. It's allowing, you can start to see that we've got audits in there, we've got risk in there, we've got performance in there. It allows us to really start making linkages across those different aspects of the organisation's business. And we've had over 50 people in the organisation now trained in that, going right from the chief executive through to our service managers as well. So it's very much something that we are using to actively manage the business. Coming on to the information governance then, which is probably the key area to just flag this evening. So that's 5.54 to 5.58. We had an information governance audit which is undertaken by what's called the Information Governance Support Service at Essex County Council, and they issued their final report in January 2025. They raised a number of issues across the themes of transparency and accountability, records management, risk and assurance, and training and awareness. I think we said in the report that we'll be looking to get a specialist information governance resource in to manage the implementation of those actions. We've since had a discussion, myself and our monitoring officer, around how best to manage that. And I think what we're going to be doing is project managing it internally, but we're going to be drawing on an information governance specialist for advice as and when we need to do that. I should point out that in spite of the findings of the audit, we do have a very low number of data breaches, with just 3 minor breaches this financial year to date, and none which required us to refer those to the Information Commissioner's Office. The other element in this particular area of information governance is cybersecurity, and we made good progress on a security incident response plan with a substantial draft in place, which has been reviewed by a senior leadership team. We just have some final steps to finalise those, and then we can move on to doing some exercising to test those plans and make sure that we have the resilience in place that we need to. And then finally, in terms of the business processes, complaints, just wanted to flag a couple of things here. So we had a revised corporate complaints policy, which was adopted in November 2024. I think they probably didn't make it quite in time for the last monitoring report brought here. We have a little bit of work that needs to be done on an annual self-assessment, which the housing team need to do to evidence compliance with what's called the Housing Ombudsman Scheme. We've got some procedures which are being rolled out over this month, and we're in a position to be able to submit a self-assessment by the end of April 2025. So again, some good progress there. And then there are 2 actions plans within the report. The first is the action plan that was included in the annual governance statement, and that's Appendix 1. The second action plan, which we're still including in this particular report, relates to the internal audit of the senior manager paying conditions. And progress against these is set out in Appendix 2. This is now largely complete. The only remaining outstanding action on this particular action plan relates to the recruitment of independent persons, which is now underway. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Councillor Benson.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question about your engagement levels through the social media channels. 4,000 messages over a year is about 77 a week, which is massive. Do we have any like KPIs on time response to these people? Because it's all well and good getting these messages in, but how are we engaging and responding?
We will, yeah. Sorry, let me start again. Yeah, it's catching. So our communications officer is pretty swift in terms of sort of keeping an eye on social media, and where we do get responses from members of the public, we do respond to those pretty quickly. I'm sure we can get some reports and a bit of detail, but we definitely do have sort of metrics around that because it's all picked up through the various social media companies. Yeah.
Councillor Dearson.
The first one, it's not a criticism, it's just something I noted, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but on 5.31 it says the council is implementing the use of existing software, blah, 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 blah. Moving over to software in December 25, followed by all service registers completed by March 25. Should that not be March 26?
No, so the service risk registers will be part of the service plans which are being done at the moment. I mean, they're in very advanced sort of draft stage. So the service plans will be done. They contain risks in them, sort of key risks to those service areas. And then over Q1, 25-26, so that'll be between April and the end of June, we're going to be getting those risks into the system like we have done with the corporate risk register.
Right, okay, so there's slightly different things in effect.
December 24. Oh, yeah, sorry, December 2024. It should say, not 2025. That's probably where the confusion's come from. Apologies. No apologies. That is. Yeah, no, sorry. Thanks. Penny's just dropped. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. So it's December 2024 that we moved over to that software,
Right, okay.
and then stuff is happening right now to put it in basically this year. You know, thank you.
Okay. On again, 5.41. It says that an emergency planning, which I know you mentioned, an exercise was done.
Yeah.
Are you able to give us any feedback on how that exercise that was undertaken in February went? Was it successful? Did it highlight any massive concerns or?
Yeah, I mean, I took part in it. I think it was a good exercise. I think for a lot of us, perhaps who are new to the to sort of either the gold or silver command that we have within the organisation, responding to those, it just brings it to life a little bit. So we've all had training, we've looked at the documents and things. It's not until you're sitting there looking through what would we do in the event of, severe weather, floods, whatever it might be. So the exercise was, I'd say it was a success. I think with any of these sorts of things, if you can exercise any of this sort of stuff and at least kind of try it out, and the training that people have been attending up at as I say, the Essex Fire and Rescue Service headquarters in Kelvedon. Very much along similar sorts of lines, but the advantage there is that we're doing that with other services, other what we call Category 1 responders as well. So there was another exercise that I went to just recently, actually, where we were working with the police and the fire and the ambulance services as well. So yeah, any of these exercises is exactly what you need to do basically, so you don't get caught out when it happens for real.
It's a growing tool, really, isn't it? Because no matter how many times you do it, you're always going to find something.
Exactly
You
right.
just
exactly right.
manage that, change it and move on to the next time, because you can't look at everything. Sorry, I've just got one more. And 5.67. Oh, sorry, do you want to go on?
Yes,
yeah, go on then. Sorry.
Through the chair, thank you.
Thank you. On that aspect, obviously, one of the things that concerns me living on Canby is how you would manage any major incident, given the lack of actually getting emergency vehicles to any area, because we all know what a bottleneck it is, even when there's just a small crash. And I just wonder if that has been taken into particular account, because normally you have different, not being on an island, if it happens on the mainland here, you have different aspects and different routes that you can bypass. But Canby, you have two main roads that will take you everywhere. And if you had an accident, say at Waterside, you wouldn't be able to get round because it would be a complete bottleneck. So I'm just hoping that that has been taken into consideration in any aspect. And furthermore, can you give me an assurance that this has been looked at with some degree of urgency, please? Thank you.
So in terms of issues around access or potential risks and those sorts of things, that will be included. And Essex County Council have a role to play within the emergency planning. They'll have a good understanding of where there are potential blockages within sort of the road system and things like that. So that will be very much as part of their awareness of those. If there is an incident, they will basically need to know. It has been taken into account. I think it's not a simple fix because we can't just build additional roads or knock down the houses and create more sort of access points. So I think it's a point that I'll probably note, but it will be included in the risks of those people who are managing the emergency plans across sort of that part of the borough.
Thank you.
Councillor Dearson.
Councillor Dearson, your microphone.
Need to have some lessons in that, don't I? Under 5.67, it says that we've now made an appointment in Feb 25. I know Andrew mentioned that he's made an appointment, but starting later in the year. So I'm thinking, how much, probably, I didn't ask how much later, but how February started. Is that going to be a similar issue where maybe they've got 3 months to resign from where they are, and so it will be later down the road when we get that resource?
No, it's a fair question. These things always take longer than you think. So I'm pleased to say that of the two resources, we've agreed start dates for those now. One's going to be joining middle of April, the other towards the end of April. So we're not that far away from that resource joining, which we'll be able to get cracking on all the stuff that we need to do with the project management side of things. Thank you.
I think my only final comment is I think it's important to say to yourself and to the guys here, I think we've come a really long way in the last year, and I think the council and the officers should be commended for that. That's only a comment from me personally. But
Councillor Breddick, had you finished your question? You're okay. Are there any more questions, members? No. Members, is that noted? Thank you. Agenda item number 9, counter fraud and investigations, Q3 performance. Mr. Dineen, would you introduce your report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Committee, this is an update report for Q3 in terms of the counter fraud and investigation team's updates. I won't go line by line. It is a standard report that has been seen by this committee many times, with particular statistics just changing. However, what you will see slightly different this year is the strategic fraud strategic work plan, and that was adopted with the new strategy that was adopted late last year, which runs 2024 to 2027. The recommendation will be for you to recognise and note the performance of the team, and I will move straight on to the data for which you are here to receive. So we have had 8 intelligence reports sent to us from other law enforcement agencies, and that's where we get to assist them. So obviously the council holds vast amounts of data, and we manage how we release that to other law enforcement. We've received 15 reports of suspected fraud in the Q3 period, and we have 5 current investigations, 4 of which are housing related, and 1 is related to the delivery of a contract. Those are valued at around £682,000. That does vary at times because during the investigation, if something's uncovered in which we understand the value in more detail, we'll change the value on our system, and naturally it will just change that value. We have also recovered 1 social housing property, which equates to cost avoidance of approximately $43,000 for the local authority. That's around officer hours, temporary accommodation costs, etc., that a family can now go into a social housing rather than remaining in temporary accommodation. So I don't plan on going through any of the others. I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to the strategy, the work plan, or the report, Chair. And then back to yourself.
Members, any questions? Councillor Dearson.
Only one really. Is there any opportunity to get any insight into the 682,000? What those investigations are? Or?
Yeah, 4 of those belong to that what we would call as housing housing issues. That would normally be something like sublet or an abandoned property. So we would be looking at that type of investigation for a housing matter. And then we've got one other, which is for a contract deliverable investigation. So is the contract being delivered appropriately or fraudulently? So we're taking a look at that. I can tell you it's approximately 500,000 for the contract disputed one, and the rest comes down to the housing.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. I note in the report you said that the work with the DWP is not being delivered at the scale you would like. Can you shed a bit of light on that?
Yeah, I think it was back in 2015 now, so we're going back a fair while, where DWP took away the investigation of benefit claims. So any benefit fraud, etc., is taken by what they call SFIS. After that took place in 2015, there was a lull between the collaboration between local authorities and the DWP. It was hoped that the introduction of joint working agreements would start to reduce that non-working relationship. However, it's still present. There are still problems with us wanting to take forward investigations and the DWP either not taking forward their side or not catching up with us. As you can imagine, the amount that they are dealing with is quite extensive, and therefore we're not always properly aligned. So I'd like it to be better. I would imagine every fraud officer would like it to be better, but we deal with it as they come up, and if we are able to work with the DWP, that's exactly what we will do.
So in short, no potential for us to remove a roadblock there?
Sorry, I didn't...
No potential for us to remove any roadblocks?
No, not unfortunately not. It is something that the DWP would govern independently on their own.
Okay. And I've just got another quick question on talking about communicating annually on the council's website about results. Is there a reason why we would only do that annually, not when you've successfully completed an investigation?
That would belong to the transparency agenda. So what we would do is we would identify within the council website how many people are involved in investigating fraud, and that's a governmental requirement. So that's what I'm talking around there. Any good news stories, we would be willing to push them out through the comms teams, etc. And that's something that my team would always look to do, and I think they did it recently with Essex Police and the housing team.
Yes, that was good to see, and I was hoping that wasn't being scotched in the plan, so thank you.
Mr. Bredding.
Yes, reading your report, on page 2, 4.5, you talk about issues specifically with a housing estate on Canvey, and that you're looking to address this in April 2025. But this has been ongoing for quite some time, hasn't it? Judging by your report.
What the team are trying to do is actively take part, at least trying, at least once a quarter in a proactive operation around the borough. So what that is we'll work with the housing team as well as local policing teams to identify places that are potentially beneficial for all parties to take a look at. And what it does for a fraud point of view is that we are then able to conduct tenancy audits on all of those properties. And for us, that's a perfect way of then finding out if the right people are in the right properties. And at the same time, we're reassuring the members of the residents of the area around community safety, because we're there with the police, and then the housing team also are able to deal with any housing issues that are raised at the same time. So as a collective, it's a very good use of resources, and we actually managed to get out to quite a lot of properties. And like the report says, we're aiming for another 30 in the end of April. So they try to do it when the policing teams have got availability, and trying to align the three departments can be tricky at times, but I think they've managed it twice this year already. So,
any further questions, members? Members, is that report noted? Thank you. Members, it's Mike's last meeting with us tonight, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your input since we've been running this committee under my chairmanship. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, that concludes the business for this meeting, with the meeting being closed at 8:05. Thank you.